Forgive me, people. I know it's been a while since I made some Demon Slayer content. However, I was waiting for things to heat up, but it's funny enough because usually I'm used to Demon Slayer taking a long time to heat up, but apparently the Demon Slayer gods or writers have heard my wishes and things got shaky and crazy right away from literally like episode 3. So I'm here to, give us a little recap on what's been going on, guys. So stay tuned to the end. Synonymous with my opinion of Demon Slayer being slow, I also feel that it just lacks in comedic relief. So whereas I'd be ready to, watch some Black Clover or One Piece, and really just stick through it, Demon Slayer can get kind of slow to me, I feel, in my opinion, to the point where I don't want to watch anymore. So like rather than just watch episode to episode, I'd binge. I'd let a couple weeks go by and then the episodes, stack on top of each other and then binge, so that I can enjoy it more, because sometimes it gets very slow and just not funny and boring to me, but that's just a personal opinion of mine. And episode 2 was a perfect example of that. I felt like it was somewhat boring. They didn't really do too much. Like what basically bothered me was how slow things were moving. It kind of felt that things were glaringly obvious that Tanjiro and the doll had some connection, but it's like he acted like he didn't even realize, like, yo, you guys have the same exact hair, the same exact earrings, like you don't think there's any connection there. But I know there's a literary element for that. I'll look it up for you guys, when basically the viewer understands or knows something but the actual character does not. And the literary element for that is actually dramatic irony. But I really had a hard time watching that episode 2. I literally paused like every 5 minutes. I also laughed at the notion that every swordsmith in the village needs to wear a mask, I guess, to protect the identity from the demons, but demon slayers don't. I guess the idea behind that is like, yo, I got hands, so I don't need no protection. Like, worst comes to worst, I could give it up, but y'all can't protect yourselves, so the mask is their protection. Kind of funny when you think about it in a broad sense. I'm also starting to see that Demon Slayer is very big on ancestry and family bloodlines and generations as well. Maybe it's just a Japanese thing, correct me if I'm wrong, or maybe it could be specific to Koyoharu Gotoge, the mangaka. But if you even see like Rengoku, Flame Hashira, like all of that family had the same hair color. Like it's just, that's to signify, even with like Game of Thrones, they do that to signify lineage. Even in Elden Ring, like hair color is a very big thing. I like how writers do that. Maybe it's just a plot thing, it makes it easier for the plot. And even with Tanjiro, like you can see that hair color signifies lineage, and I think that's an interesting thing that they will expand upon as the series and the manga continues. My last question for episode 2 was, how has the doll lasted 300 plus years, and how can no one have fixed it? Like, what kind of sophisticated art was that? But and how is it barely broken? How was Tanjiro the one to break it? But obviously plot, like I don't want to get too heavy on picking apart the plot. Also, from a natural mastery sense, it doesn't make sense to train with the same opponent, because training with the same opponent, no matter how tough they are, that will dull your skills, because you need to fight different opponents to get better. So I didn't appreciate how they tried to make it seem like some 6-armed doll would be the end all be all for some Hashira training. And at this point I want to laugh, because I think I watch way too much anime, because I literally rolled my eyes after Tanjiro broke the doll. Like him and Kotetsu found the sword, like it just was like, oh, so cliche. After 300 years the right person's gonna find the sword and no one found it. 300 years is a long time, guys. Apparently that sword they found was from the Sengoku period, and it prompted me to go and look up some of these periods in Japan, and it was very interesting what I found. The Sengoku period is a period in Japanese history in which civil wars and social upheavals took place almost continuously in the 15th and 16th centuries. So maybe Demon Slayer is just a adaptation of these periods of feudal wars, and instead of the opposing sides being human and human, it could have been Demon versus Demon Slayer core. Maybe you didn't think of that. And at this point I had to reference, we're in episode 3, and I had to reference that I was correct about their elaborate system to keep the demons from finding the Swordsmith village, because they honestly found it way too easy. Sometimes I feel like Demon Slayer, the plot is just, I don't know, like it just always seems to collapse on itself to a point where it's like, all right, like you didn't even try that hard to make things seem like they work or like they're realistic. I was having a very hard time distinguishing Mr. Kanamori from Haganezuka. Sorry about that, guys. You know how these Japanese names get me. But yeah, they all wear masks, so it was very hard telling who's who at a point. But luckily this is where things turn up, because by episode 3 I did not expect a surprise attack by the upper 4. Like it almost seemed like I was like, am I tripping? Am I seeing things? But he just like kind of creeped out the corner. That was very like cinematic and exciting, and the fight just starts like just like that. So we know honestly they're probably going to be fighting throughout the whole season, because this is an upper rank demon. So I'm still wondering how they found the village, but I'm sure they'll explain that in a later episode. It's also crazy how Nezuko was the only one that was able to land the first hit, because even Tanjiro and the Miss Hashira were struggling trying to capture Hantengu when he first came in attack. That's upper rank 4, sorry if I butchered that name. I'm not gonna lie, so in video games, they always have the second phase, basically where let's say you defeat a boss and then he'll come back stronger with a new transformation or something, or like a second health bar and you gotta beat him again in a stronger form. I think they have really mastered that in Demon Slayer and I love it. Like when you think, no upper rank demon is ever killed after the first cut, or even if you think you cut their neck off, cut their head off, you just know they're gonna second phase you. Like you just know it, and it's just very interesting. And honestly, upper rank 4 might have the best second phase of them all so far from what we've seen. It also led me to the question of, do all upper rank demons have a 2-in-1 or multiple souls? Maybe that's like a thing with them. They're so powerful that they're multiple souls in one. That's what makes them an upper moon. And then shout out to all my DBZ fans, because I'm sure you guys could sympathize and feel the same way about how I felt. So when upper rank 4 split into different counterparts, and then whatever, I'm not sure which counterpart it was, I'm pretty sure it was Pleasure, Urogi, he started charging that mouth attack. I was like, oh yeah, it's about to go down, DBZ style for sure. And Tanjiro had to eat that whole thing. And then they leave us off with a little good old nurturing lesson that Tanjiro is teaching to his superior, basically the Miss Hashira. Well, he is older than him, so I guess there is space for him to learn in that sense, but he is the superior swordsman. But what Tanjiro says to the Miss Hashira is, what you do for others always comes back and help you. So that's a very interesting and important lesson that the Hashira learns throughout the fight, and I'm sure he'll be learning throughout the season. Hopefully we don't see him, get hurt, because the Hashira seem to have a tragic history of, losing in a very bad way. By episode 4, I had questions like, how did the Miss Hashira, whose name is formerly Tokito Muichiro, how did he lose his memory? Basically, that was my question, but I'm sure they're going to expand on that later. I said this in another video, and I'm not sure if it's private or not, but I do want to link it in here in the description. But I always say this, why do the Demon Slayer Corps always get separated in a huge battle? Like, it seems their biggest weakness is teamwork. Literally, like, they just don't know how to work as a team. Like, they should be able to, whoever they're paired with, just be able to effortlessly combine forces and, fight as a team, but that never seems to be the case. Like, my boy Tanjiro is always getting left to face upper ranks alone. Like, he always has to think on the fly. Like, I really be feeling bad for him, honestly. And then we get such an interesting upper rank 4 demon, an interesting character overall. I think who may deserve his own video separately. But Hantengu basically breaks up into 4 different personalities. So we have anger, who is Sekido, joy, who is Karaku, sorrow, who is Aizetsu, and pleasure, who is Urogi. And these are like basically emotions that he breaks up into. I'm trying to think what other anime reminds me of this. Well, in a sense, if you remember Black Clover, there they had the three leaders of the Eye of the Midnight Sun. They were basically called the Third Eye, and you had, I want to say, Ryza, who was, sorry, his name was Raya, who was disloyal. And then you had Veto, who was despair. And then you had Fana, who was hatred. So it's kind of cool, kind of reminded me of that concept. But I'm wondering which would be the strongest among the 4 that Hantengu separated into. I want to say Sekido and Aizetsu, only because maybe anger and sorrow are somewhat stronger emotions than joy and pleasure. And Sekido also seems to be the one calling the shots for the most part. He's the guy with the lightning staff and he's always angry. So that prayer that Genya is praying in episode 4 is actually the Amida Sutra, which is a scripture written by Buddha and recited by Buddhists. See, a lot of things you need to do your research with, guys, because if you don't, you won't really understand how deep and heavy these references are to other things in anime. And this is what makes anime an adult level show. And yes, children watch it, but a lot of things go over your head. Like, there's actually a video about Trunks' burning attack and the reason he makes those hand size. I might link it for you guys, and it's very interesting to break down into why he does what he does. Like, something that we thought was just cool, like, you would realize that the mangaka is actually putting in there for a very specific reason, and it gives the anime much more depth. It makes it even that much more enjoyable, and I appreciate it that much more. By the way, speaking of Genya, it's super fire that he has a sawed-off shotty. Like, he's like, yo, fuck the swords for once. No more sword fighting. I got a shotgun for these demons because I don't have time to play right now. The shotgun gives the show's fighting style a lot more depth, because even what we see with the Sound Hashira, he had a double-bladed Nichiren blade tied to a metal chain. Like, he was the first Demon Slayer we saw to have that. So now we understand that they are not limited to just a Nichiren blade. They can have different weapons. Like, I think Genya's shotgun has Nichiren bullets. So it's very interesting, and now we know it gives more space for writing different types of weapons and different type of characters. But speaking of this fight, it was very interesting to see that Nezuko just needs time to warm up in her battles. Like, she kind of starts off kind of slow. Maybe it's because she doesn't drink blood for herself, so she can't just normally transform. Like, I think anger and emotions are what fuel her, because she kind of like starts off a little slow. She takes damage, you know what I mean, gets beat up a little bit, and then she starts to warm up, and then she starts to really put in pain. At this point, I believe it's safe to say that Nezuko can hang with at least any upper rank demon, because if she's been able to hang with stronger ones than upper rank 4. So now my question is, I'm not sure, is Hantengu weaker than the counterparts that he splits into? Which that's not always the case, because as we saw with Daki, I forgot her brother's name, but as he was released from her, he was actually a lot stronger. So maybe it is like a thing with demon slayers, they actually need to warm up, so maybe their hidden forms are a lot stronger than their, you know, base forms. Even like we see that with Frieza, like he moves around in a weaker base form than his actual stronger form, I guess, you know, just to warm up. It's an anime thing, they gotta warm up. But also Hantengu also has his own kanji, which he has the kanji for fear, and I also know that anger and resentment and hatred come later, but I just haven't seen them yet, and I haven't seen episode 5, so I apologize for that, guys, but that'll be coming soon. Just want to highlight and applaud Tanjiro's fighting prowess and genius in episode 4, because he really does a lot, and they even say that has very good intuition in fighting, you know, instincts. So that's why he's able to hang with these upper rank demons so much. But I feel bad for him, because it's like he always ends up in the toughest of battles. And as we end up episode 4, we see the love Hashira of Mitsuri Kanroji storming off into battle. And I can't help thinking, I love the Hashira concept, because yes, they may be extremely powerful characters. However, they're not perfect, and they actually tend to lose a lot of the time. So hopefully we don't get another tragic death between one of the Hashira. Hopefully everyone can just survive this season, because Demon Slayer seems to be, you know, having a lot of tragedy in their episodes, but we'll see where these things go from now on. But this was a video, guys. Remember, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time, guys. But remember to always find your Zen, your final form. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, let's go.